Hello everyone, it's Brian in Toronto. Today I am going to do a thread response. But before that, let me just give you a programming note. I have a Vinyl Finds video coming up in the next 2 or 3 days, so look out for that. And yeah, that's it. I probably have other things, I just don't remember what they are. But back to the purpose of this video, which is a thread response for Steve at All the World's a Stage. This is a thread called I have never owned a record by these 5 artists, which I think is pretty cool because it kind of gives you the chance to talk about maybe bands you hate or singers you hate, which is kind of fun. Now, I have this sneaking suspicion that some people start threads so that the people responding have an opportunity to say something nice about the person who started the thread. So here we go. Let me say some nice things about Steve. Let me think about that. Well, first, he's a big fan of 70s music, but it doesn't really end there. He does like things that are outside of that, and he does sometimes surprise me by showing things that I never would have guessed that he likes. So there's that. Another really interesting thing about Steve, which I think is really great, is that in the vinyl community, we often say things like, oh, I'm going to check that artist out, or I'm going to listen to that, or I'm going to see what pursue that a little further to see what I think about that artist. And he actually does that. In fact, he has purchased at least one record and CDs that I've recommended, which I think is really, really interesting. So that's a really great thing. Maybe more of us should do that. Steve also started what I consider to be the best show in the vinyl community. That's something called Spin on This, which he hosted with Gary from Physical Format Rock and Roll. And those in the know already know that that was great, and we're mourning the loss of it. But maybe if we put enough pressure on the hosts, it will come back. Who knows? So, like Steve did, I'm going to eliminate a couple of genres right off the top because it would be too easy for me to just name people like, Katy Perry or Taylor Swift, with apologies to Rob at Northern Revolutions, Rihanna, even Madonna, Justin Bieber, Ed Sheeran, even ABBA. Like that kind of music I've never been interested in, and so I just don't see the point of just naming those when everybody knows I don't like them anyway. And country music, with the exception of Johnny Cash, which everyone says, I'm not into country music. The sound of new country just makes my skin crawl. It's a horrible, horrible thing. I just cannot get into it, and I just don't like it. So I've eliminated those groups. And let's just get into it then. So 5 artists in approximately the order I thought about them that I don't own in any physical format. And the first is Guns N' Roses. Now I do know the big tracks from Guns N' Roses, the cover version of Live and Let Die, the cover version of Knockin' on Heaven's Door. And I will say I prefer the original Dylan version of that song. And I do know Welcome to the Jungle, and I've heard November Rain. I don't know if I've heard anything else. I know those for sure, and I don't know if I've heard anything else. And it could be that I just need to know more about the band. I know his voice is not something that everyone loves. I find it a bit grating myself. But it could be maybe more exposure would change my mind. But it just occurred to me that I should tell you this funny anecdote that a few years ago I was having a conversation with my partner Cecile, and she mentioned something to do with the fact that Axl Rose was working on Chinese democracy. And honestly, I thought that what she was saying is that he had moved into some sort of political realm and was trying to bring democracy to China. And then she mentioned it was a record, and I was like, what? I was so out of touch then, so it's hilarious. So that's number 1. And these aren't in any order. Number 2 is actually 2 things, because it's either the band Bon Jovi or the singer John Bon Jovi. Again, never owned anything by either of those entities. I probably know more Bon Jovi songs from the band than I do from Guns N' Roses. And they're okay. I mean, in the first 2 cases here with these 2 bands, if it came on the radio, I wouldn't turn the radio off, or I wouldn't change the station probably. But, I mean, they're just not bands or artists that I have been drawn to. Like, I've never heard their music on the radio and thought, yeah, I got to get something from this person or this band. So that's 2. Number 3 may be a little bit surprising, because I do like Nirvana, for example, but I've never purchased anything from the Foo Fighters. Dave Grohl seems to be a good guitarist, and he was a good drummer, or is a good drummer, and he's done some work with Killing Joke, a band I really like, and other things. And I have them Crooked Vultures on on CD, but I've never owned anything from the Foo Fighters. So that's kind of funny. Maybe I should. But, and again, I hear the songs on the radio, so I know quite a few songs, but I've just never bought anything from them. And I'm not sure whether it's because I don't like them or just never did it. So number 4 is a band called Journey. And of course, everyone knows Don't Stop Believin'. And again, that's a funny kind of cheesy song. And it's not terrible. I just, I've never been in a record store flipping through the bins and stumbled across a Journey record and thought I should buy that for whatever reason. So never owned any Journey. And the last one should come with a trigger warning for Steve, because he just bought a large box set by this artist, and that is Stevie Nicks. Now, I do know her work with Fleetwood Mac, but I've never owned any and I have some Fleetwood Mac. I just never owned any solo work from Stevie Nicks. And in this case, this is probably a case where I would say maybe I actively don't like them, and it's primarily based on 2 songs, because I don't know how many songs of hers I've heard, but the 2 songs I hate are Stop Dragging My Heart Around, the duet she did with Tom Petty. I just find that just such an awful song. In fact, I would skip it on the CD, and I have it on vinyl on a collection back here, and I wish they had left it off. I just think it's awful. And One Winged Dove, I think that's what it's called. That song, I will definitely turn off the radio when that comes on. For some reason, that song really gets under my skin. I just hate it thoroughly. So, for whatever reason. So, I could have done, honestly, 50, 60, 70 artists in this thread, but 5 was a good number because we just go on and on and on. And maybe I should know more. If you watch my channel, maybe you have an opinion on whether or not I would like a certain artist. Maybe I would like them. But that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.